Okay. You all set? Everybody ready? Welcome everyone to a regular meeting of the Guam Public Utilities Commission, January 27th, 6:35 p.m. 5 commissioners are present this evening, 2 are absent. That would be Doris and Pedro Guerrero. First item is approval of the minutes of October 28th, 2021 and December 2nd, 2021.
2 sets of minutes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next item is GPA docket 2204, petition for approval of contract for supply of diesel fuel oil to GPA. We have an ALJ report and a proposed PUC order ratifying the chairman's order. Fred?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Previously, the commission had authorized the chairman to sign an order approving the contract for supply of diesel fuel to GPA. And this is the ultra-low sulfur diesel supply for the the PD 7, 8, and 9 plants. And the contract commenced on January 1, 2022, expires on December 31, 2023. And it was rather critical that the supply be moved ahead on this. So the problem was the commission wasn't meeting in December. So you commissioners had authorized the chairman to sign an order that approved the contract. And this contract for the supply of ultra-low sulfur diesel authorized GPA to expend up to the amounts of $76+ million for the first year of the contract and $114+ million for the second year of the contract, for a total of $190.3 million for the 2-year contract. So you've already approved the action by the chairman in signing that. So this is only before you tonight on a ratification order. And the ratification attaches the order of the chairman. It recognizes the ALJ report, which recommended that the PUC approve the contract for the supply of ultra-low sulfur diesel, and explains the exigent circumstances and that there was no meeting in December. So by the order of the ratification, the commission would approve the chairman's order dated December 24, 2021, and just would essentially ratify it, approve it, and adopt it as the commission's order.
Thank you, Fred. Any comments from the commission?
Do we need to vote to ratify?
Yeah.
Motion to ratify?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is GPA docket 2205, petition to set the levelized energy adjustment clause effective February 1, 2022. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, this comes before the PUC on the petition of GPA to set the LEAC factor effective February 1, 2022. And since December of last year, you remember for the last LEAC period, there was a 3-step increase. And the last increase was on December 1st in the amount of basically 17.1 cents. And in its petition for setting the LEAC for the upcoming period, GPA submitted that there should be no increase in the LEAC factor. And so it would stay under their proposal in their petition at 17.1 kilowatts for the next 6 months. In its original petition, GPA had estimated that there would be an under recovery of $17.6 million by July 31st, 2022. So at the end of this upcoming LEAC period, leaving it the same at 17.1 would have resulted in that 17.6 million under recovery. What happened was, I guess, that at that time, GPA said that we could leave it in effect, although I note that GPA also recognized that fuel prices were increasing for this upcoming LEAC period. And in its petition, I guess they recognized that the average market price of residential fuel oil and diesel was approved at $77+ per barrel for the 6-month period ending January 31, 2022. But in this upcoming LEAC period, the fuel price for diesel was expected to reach $87.48. So as I indicated, GPA was comfortable with maintaining the LEAC factor, even though the most recent Morgan Stanley market projections indicated rising fuel prices. Now, in the ALJ report, I provided you with some figures that kind of show what had happened to fuel prices in the last 6 months since the beginning of this current LEAC period. And on page 3 of my report, basically it indicates for high sulfur fuel oil, as of August, at the beginning of the period, the price was around $429 per metric ton. It went up to $503 as of October 5th, but then as of December 1st, it had gone down to $399. However, afterwards, it went back up again. It's been a real roller coaster ride. But the most recent figure now, around January 20th, indicates over $500 for the Singapore high sulfur fuel oil 180 CST index. And for the 10 ppm gas oil, which is something like diesel, it started out at $80 at the beginning of the LEAC period, and it's now over $100. So if you look at the increase, there's been really a substantial increase in the fuel prices. The Singapore high sulfur fuel increased by 16.8%, and the Singapore gas oil 10 parts per million up by 26%. This is over the last 6 months. Unfortunately, too, the under recovery balance, that is what GPA has not recovered from LEAC, has also increased considerably during this LEAC period. The filing in December that GPA made, and at that time they were basing the recommendation on November fuel prices, November last year, which of course the fuel prices were low. And at that time, as I said, they had projected that the under recovery would be 17.6 million by the end of this LEAC period, by July 31st. And looking at it at that time, when GPA filed its petition, actually it looked somewhat good, because the under recovery had been 20.6 million, at the as of the end of this period, and it was then going to decrease. GPA believed that it would decrease down to 17.6 million. So based on the original fuel prices in the petition, there would be a decrease of 3 million over the LEAC period. And when I looked at that, I thought, well, that sounds decent. At least we're going in the right direction. We're making some progress. But unfortunately, what happened then is the updated fuel prices that GPA provided in January. And the updated Morgan Stanley fuel prices in January indicated that the fuel prices had increased more rapidly than anticipated. That's the over $500 for the high sulfur fuel and the $100 that I indicated to you. So the prices were actually much higher now than they had been last November. And the most unfortunate part is that the under recovery was going to increase to 23.4 million. So no longer was it the case, as stated in the original petition of GPA, that the LEAC would go down to 17.6 million. In fact, it was going to increase by about 2.8 million up to 23.4 million. GPA also, if you look at the figures they've given, they gave in January for the updated LEAC, that the prices again have gone up considerably. In their original petition, GPA estimated that the prices would be, let's see, for RFO, $82.76 per barrel, and for diesel, 95.93 cents. But as a result of the increased fuel prices, now for this upcoming period, the prices are going to be $84.40 per barrel for RFO and $101.79 for the diesel. So again, the under recovery under this, the current fuel prices is going to increase by 2.6 million. And I don't believe that it's appropriate to keep the LEAC factor at, that was based on prices last November in effect now, because we're going to have an additional 2.6 million under recovery at the end of this upcoming period if you leave the LEAC factor as it is. And I would also note that even under the tariff Z, when the under recovery increases by more than 2 million, GPA can actually come in and readjust it. When they come to the PUC, they say, well, fuel prices have gone up by more than 2 million, are under recovery, and therefore they can ask the PUC to raise it. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Not that they're going to ask to raise it, but that the price, the fuel price, is going to increase by more than 2 million. One final little factor or an issue. You'll recall that in docket 2114, the PUC had ordered GPA to apply 10 million from the self-insurance fund and 5 million from the CIP funds to offset the LEAC under recovery balance. Now the 10 million has been applied, but I understand from GPA there's a problem with the CIP funds, because I think what they were trying to do was just say that they won't spend 5 million, and that would be the offset. But now the position seems to be that they can't use those funds to offset it. So that's 5 million less to offset against the under recovery. And that's one reason it's as high as it is. Now, I'll outline 3 options for you to consider tonight. Actually, you have more options than 3. You're not necessarily limited. The 3 I set forth were either stay with the current LEAC factor, that's one. Another one I wanted to point out is full recovery. Just so you know that what it would really take for GPA to recover everything in the under recovery balance. And, you know, under LEAC, under tariff C, there shouldn't be an under recovery balance. If you get right down to it, the whole purpose of LEAC is to set the prices so that GPA recovers everything. But there, that's another factor. And then I also suggested an 18-cent, a 1 cent increase in the LEAC. Now, you could, for example, increase it more if you felt that was necessary to recover the $23 million under recovery. But I'd just like to briefly look at each of the possibilities. The problem I have with the no increase is this additional 2.6 million. That is raising the under recovery to 23,210,000 as of July 2022. The under recovery balance, if you leave it the same, is going to be even higher than it is now, and still at unprecedented, undesirable levels. You know, when we get into the $20 to $30 million range, that's not where we're supposed to be under LEAC. so for that reason, I don't think leaving it as is a good proposal. Now, I should mention there's been some talk about the effect of the KEPCO plant, which the solar plant, which will come on sometime in April, and that will reduce some fuel price, not reduce the price, but reduce the under recovery balance, because we won't be using as much fuel, and therefore there could be as much as $1 million a month reduction. Now, I can only say for now, it's a little speculative because it's out in April. We don't exactly know when the KEPCO plant is gonna come on and fully produce the fuel oil. But, I mean, it produced the solar power. But even if we assume that, let's say, starting in May, June, and July, there's some reduction, $1 million a month, we're still talking about an under recovery balance in July of over 20 million. And that's just not, that's not acceptable. Additionally, I think if you don't do something now to raise it, then next LEAC period is going to require an even more substantial increase likely. I mean, it's all speculation because we don't fully know what fuel prices are going to do in the next 6 months. But I think that the most prudent, careful approach is to do something now to have some increase, and therefore, whatever happens in the next 6 months, you'll be better prepared. But if you leave it as is, there's going to be the $20 million nut to crack at the next LEAC again. And at some point, it's just got to be recovered. It's not appropriate that there's that large an under recovery. So the full recovery factor would be almost 21 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, some have accused me of being a tin man in a prior meeting, having no heart. But actually, I feel that's too much. I mean, if you increased the factor by 4 cents now, the average ratepayer is going to be paying almost $40 a month on the average residential bill. And I feel at this time it's really asking a lot, and it's probably not a good idea to try to recover the entire balance at once, but do it in a more ongoing, methodical process where you start now, you knock it down a little, then next time you can take another step if necessary to reduce it further. So what I've looked at is a factor of 18 cents per kilowatt hour. And the reason I like that is because it would at least not allow any further increase in the under recovery. So if the under recovery is 17.6 million, it would remain the same as of August 2022. So basically 18 cents will mean that there's no additional under recovery piling up over this LEAC period. Now, I also think, by the way, that's consistent with Tariff Z on LEAC, because really the purpose of the fuel recovery clause is to determine the price of fuel during the next LEAC period to make sure that that price is covered. And this 1 cent increase will do that. It'll mean that there's no additional under recovery, unless of course, fuel prices spike, which is always possible. But based on the current predictions, that 1 cent will maintain the under recovery balance where it is now. And also looking at the impact on ratepayers, the increase of 1 cent would constitute an average monthly increase of $9.38 on the average residential power bill, an increase of 3.49% in the total bill, and a 5.47 increase in the LEAC factor. So that is the option I think is most true to Tariff Z. It recovers our estimated current cost of fuel in the upcoming period. And it doesn't allow any further accumulation of the under recovery into that dangerous $20 to $30 million range.
Thank you, Fred. John, do you have any comments at all about this period of time, LEAC?
Do I need to make a comment?
No, you don't have to make it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it is very difficult period, and again, prices have been rising, and the question is, really, it really has ended, but there's no certainty to that. It's been coming up and down. I've been watching it, and again, the Omicron virus mostly the demand down, and the supply down, creating all these issues. We could leave it at 17.1. I think we can absorb the additional under recovery. And Fred is correct. The party that was doing thing to do is going to like 18.1 cent, which we have to look back since August 1st. We've been raising the rate to about 2 cents per kilowatt hour every 2 months. So 1 cent is kind of starting to stabilize it, but okay, leave it to the wisdom of the PUC. We could absorb the additional. I don't see my CFO saying no. We could absorb the additional under recovery. It's a hard call, but either way, I think we can make it. Because I guess the one that really has a crystal ball.
Okay, he's got a question for you, John.
Well, or also for maybe John Kim also. So in the docket, there was some mention about this under recovery being part of the review process for possibly impact negatively a credit rating of some sort. And I know you guys are currently going out to for audit. Would this, do they actually ask you what your under recoveries are or under recoveries are?
No, they don't. The bond process, they usually don't ask one. Part of the reason is because they believe that QC will make sure that we recover all the recovery eventually.
Right.
So they have that place.
So the look is to make sure that we got some kind of plan to make sure that you guys fully recover at some point.
Yes.
So, and then this 1 cent is, if we're looking at the 1 cent getting to 18 cents, that's gonna keep the fuel under recovery at 17 million.
Yes.
Right, like hold it there. And the hopes that KEPCO comes online and then we can start reducing it at that point. So we can basically keep it now for 6 months and not bother the ratepayers with any more increases. Is that where we're at for the 6 months? Or are we coming back again?
For August, I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen, but with the KEPCO 60 megawatts renewable coming in, it will help slowly decrease the under recovery. So it could be ranging from $250,000 to $500,000 per month.
Right.
And that would start.
Yeah, but I'm just, my question, between now and July, if we do this, let's say 1 cent, that is gonna hold for the 6 months. There's no more gradual increases. We just want it to be like one price at some point. I think we tried to level it, ease it into the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? We did it on a 3-step tier.
Yeah.
And that might have just been a reminder that it keeps raising, right?
Yeah.
So versus trying to do, balancing it out with one-time shot. So,
The question is, will we come back with the higher fuel prices over the next 6 months? Will we come back and filing another petition? I think my answer to that will be no. We will absorb what's necessary to achieve it until we get to the next year.
until we get to July.
That will provide the ratepayers relief.
So
Again,
that's
we have
stability.
since August been $20, $20.
Right.
So this will provide some relief, and hopefully better things happen. But if not, then I believe we were as high as 30 million.
Yes.
Previously.
Right.
So again, this just means we restart our process again.
Right.
As far as the bond rating agencies, I think our ratios are all in good shape. Financials are in good shape, and again, part of the main reason of the LEAC was to ensure that we continue to, pay our fuel bills. So I think that we had meetings with our rating agencies, and they have seen the LEAC plan, and so I don't think that's an issue for them.
Okay, thank you.
Fred, go ahead.
There was just one additional fact I wanted to mention, which is I received one of the fuel reports from GPA today. This is the MBC Asia Daily Oil Updates. And they state that crude oil futures prices rallied on Wednesday to reach $90 a barrel for the first time in 7 years, supported by tight global supply and rising political tensions between Russia and Ukraine. So just the most recent indication of where we could be headed.
Thank you.
So GPA, you applied the 10 million from the self-insurance fund?
Yes, we applied that, yes.
To the last,
I think that was last July or August at that time.
do you have a balance of what the SIP is right now? Or is there?
Oh, yeah, you mean the balance right now?
Yeah.
As of December, we had close to, I believe, $20 million under recovery.
Okay, and why is it that you cannot apply the 5 million that was said you would with the
Yep.
CIP funds? What's causing the issue there?
Yes, we used the $5 million to help pay for the fuels, but to actually put in a financial statement as an expense. Most of the time when you have LEAC, you have revenue and you have expenses are wash. So when you have $5 million just expense and no corresponding revenues, our debt service will decrease and cause a technical default if it goes below 1.3. So we couldn't apply it.
So how is GPA proposing to absorb the excess of the 2.6 million if we maintain the 17 cents?
Yeah. So the $2.6 million we feel under recovery goes to the balance sheet, so it doesn't go to the P&L. So when we move to P&L, you have a corresponding revenue for it. So that's why the under recovery is considered a deferred asset until you get the money to offset it. And that's part of the the accounting by the Department of Energy.
So
We are using the 5 million to absorb the under recovery, so we use it in that way. Where they come from, so that's just not, you can't directly apply it as an expense.
Yeah, we're just using the money to, like a working capital to pay for it, and put in the rates, but not in the P&L point of view where you can put it as an expense. Yeah.
So case in point, the $90 that Fred was talking about, is already coming down to, I used WTI and it went up to about 87, almost 88, and now it's at 86, so it's been going.
So the under recovery as of December 7th is 20 million then.
Yes.
So by increasing to the 1 cent front, how do we keep it at 17 if it's at 20? Is it going to pay off some of the balance? I thought it was to just keep it steady.
Well, 17 was the original figure. Yeah, it would be 20, I guess, to keep it at 20.
It's basically we're gonna keep it at 20
Yes.
then.
The original estimate was 17, but it's gone.
Right, but that's got up to 20. And so this 1
And it'll be
cent
23.4 with no increase.
by July. But by increasing the 1 cent, we'll keep it at the 20.
At 20, yes, you're right.
So, and if by July, the 22, or if we do nothing, it's gonna go to 22, which is still kind of within the.
23.4, which would be a 2.6 million increase.
Right. So we just wanna make sure we don't get to a point where it's too big of a hill to climb.
But that's what we did with the last, REAC period, we gradually built it up. So had we just maintained the 17 at that time,
Had we gone straight up to that,
17, then we would have
well, it
been
would
in
have
a better
been, it would have
position.
been a rate shock, and then we would have been like,
We didn't mind it. Just like we don't want to bring it to 21 cents now.
right? Keep this down.
With Kepco plant coming in on April, what's the anticipated chip away on the under recovery? 1 million a month or 1.5?
No, from our projections about half a million, 50,000 to $500,000.
Not that much.
Per
Not
month.
that much.
Yeah. That might be just enough to offset any increases in the actual fuel. If fuel continues to climb.
Yes, a million, yes.
Yeah, the global situation.
The reduction of under recovery is like what John is stating, but the plan itself will be saving about $1 million a month in savings beginning in April. And so far, you know, the latest I heard from them, we're still on track.
We did 13, 15, and 17 on a gradual basis. We only had something like 17. So we did it.
It's really not that much has changed.
Yeah, if you go from the 18 is not.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's just
that's
one step. We're not going 3 step.
Then you don't wanna go 18, 19, 20,
Yeah, if you want.
to bring it down. I just think they probably, the next 6 months might, huh?
Yeah, I think we're still gonna go up.
Yeah, fuel's gonna go up.
I think the safe move right now, honestly, even though it might not be popular, is to go to 18 cents. You know,
Right.
we can always adjust as time goes by to up or down.
Yeah, as much as we wanna recover it, or at least put it on the right path to recover it at 21 cents, I think it's too much for the island. Too much for the residents, right? So, I think the $9 might be more reasonable to maintain it at 20 million.
We're basically keeping pace is what we're doing.
Right. Who knows what 6 months will happen in 6 months?
Well, we can always adjust as time goes by.
Right.
And we've done that before.
Yeah, we've done it plenty of
For the
times.
lead, right?
If it gets too high.
Up and down.
Right.
Well, I like your recommendation, Fred, it sounds kind of in between.
Joe or Mike, any comments?
Yeah, I may be the only one that feels this way, but I don't really want to increase. And I think that, one, because GPA did not file an amendment petition in January, which I think they could have. If they really felt strongly that that's necessary. I'm also kind of persuaded by what John and John have said, that they can, not only can they absorb it, but that they're still sort of waiting and seeing how things go over the next 6 months. We don't really know for sure what's going to happen. But the most important thing I think is just that if I were to choose between an increase now and an increase in August, I'd rather have an increase in August. So that gives the economy more time to make it better and for people to be in a better position. So this is how I feel. I might feel differently if GPA was like they're really pushing for an increase. But they sort of know their situation and they're comfortable keeping it as it is. Each one. So that's my opinion.
Right. Now, historically, we have, done increases when GPA has not asked for it before. We just felt it was in the best interest. Ultimately, it lies in our hands, so
we were projecting a under recovery in December about 17 million, correct? And
Yes.
The actual is 20 million.
Yes.
And now we're projecting with no increase, to be at 23 million by July. Under
Yes.
recovery.
Yes.
What is that? That goes up another 3 million. 26 million. We're off 3 million on our projection in December.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, my concern is we're off again.
If the projections are off.
Yeah, we'll be at 26 million. That's a bigger tackle to happen. I don't wanna see it. I would rather see it maintained at 20. According to almost that increase to 18 cents.
Okay. All right. Any more comments from the committee? Anybody ready to make a motion?
The risk execution. Like, yeah, I think the one sentence reasonable keeps us in play, so I'll move to approve the order docket 2205.
The third option, 18 cents.
Keep it, yeah, to leave, raise it to 18 cents to maintain the under recovery at 20 million, hopefully.
All right, is there a second to that motion? Motion is seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Mike, are you a nay? Nay. So the motion carries 4-1. Thank you, GPA.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is GWA docket 2205. This is quite a mouthful. A petition of Guam Waterworks Authority to procure an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity design build contract and an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity professional project construction management contract for GWA's island-wide sewer collection, transmission system repair, rehabilitation, and replacement project. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Joe Fett, I believe this one's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this matters before the PUC pursuant to a request by GWA to approve, as you mentioned, 2 procurements. The first is an invitation for bid for design build services, and the second is a request for proposal for project and construction management services, both of which will support GWA's sewer collection transmission system repair project. In its petition, GWA stated that these contracts are necessary in anticipation of the consent decree with the US EPA, as well as for the protection of human and environmental health. They've indicated that its sewer system is in need of repair and rehabilitation, and that it will need the occasional need of design build services to address emergency repairs that exceed its in-house resources. GWA has also indicated that these services are needed to augment its resources and will assist in ensuring the continuity of sewer service to the island's customers while minimizing adverse impacts to the island's service. GWA submitted the draft IFB and RFP to us, and based on the draft IFB, GWA intends on conducting a multi-step bid for the indefinite delivery and indefinite quantity bid for contractors who can provide complete design and construction services necessary to design, obtain certain permits, repair, rehabilitate, or replace GWA's sewer collection and transmission system. And according to the draft IFB that we looked at, the bid items include mobilization, sewer cleaning, CCTV inspections and assessments, bypass point repairs, cured in place pipe installation, new pipe installation, new manhole installation, manhole removals, among a host of other tasks. We also looked at the RFP for the construction and project management contractor. And GWA intends on soliciting proposals from engineering firms who can provide professional project and construction management services to support the design build projects, specifically firms with experience in the management and construction of activities related to wastewater projects, survey work, and preparation of required reports. The work indicated in the RFP include pre-construction work, such as reviewing the construction contractor's schedule for sequencing, meeting the performance deadlines, reviewing contract materials and design submittals, reviewing construction safety and traffic control plans, as well as reviewing permits required for the construction. There's also work during the construction, of course, like monitoring daily construction activities, making sure that it complies with the technical provisions of the contracts and drawings, as well as applicable codes and regulations, performing daily site inspections during the course of the projects, and monitoring, of course, all of the construction activities, just to name a few of the tasks. And then, of course, there's work after the construction, such as final inspections, overseeing debris removal and cleanup, and verifying full compliance by the contractor that GWA uses to construct these repairs. Now, according to GWA, it estimates that the total cost of the design build work for the projects is about $13 million, and that's for the projects that were identified in its 2018 Water Resources Master Plan update. And they also anticipate that the cost for the project and construction management work will more likely exceed $1 million, which is based on its current contract for the Asen Adeline Pagapia Route 1 sewer line repair project. And so based on this documentation, which was a lot that we reviewed, submitted by GWA, I recommended that the sewer system is in need of repair, and that GWA needs these contractors to address emergency repairs that exceed its in-house resources. And so I found that the subject procurement of these contracts to be reasonable, given that the improvement and repair of its sewer system is necessary for the protection of human and environmental health. And based on this record, Mr. Chairman, I recommend the approval of the procurement of these two particular bids.
Thanks, Joe. Miguel, any comments on this? And can you explain that full title of this docket for all of us, so we commissioners fully understand what it all means?
Well, the commissioners might remember, I took a meeting the last time I came before you about an IDIQ contract. These contracts are one for design build services, and the reason why they're IDIQ is there are multiple sites that we need to address. Some that we have identified in our 2018 Water Resource Master Plan and are also included in our 5-year CIP. But we also would like the capacity for emergency repairs that come up, and we do have those frequently. In fact, our last one was along Polly Ferdinand and Santa Rita, where we tried to do the repairs ourselves, but it exceeded the capacity of our crews, and then we had to go out and do kind of a small construction procurement for a contractor to help us. So this type of contract gives us that flexibility for those types of situations which do come up. The other indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract is, which will be awarded on a task order basis, is for the project and construction management side of it, so the engineering support. These projects are identified in our master plan, but as you know, we're negotiating consent decree with US EPA, which in part contains a significant amount of work in our wastewater collection system. And So the contracts we believe are critical to our ability to quickly handle those and keep ahead of the US EPA's compliance requirements for the wastewater collection system.
Okay. Thanks, Miguel. Comments from the commissioners?
Is there a cap on it at some point? I mean, with it being indefinite quantities? You're saying that, I know that indefinite quantity services, it's per task, and then you just keep going out and adding on to it, but is there any kind of cap or a total of the site?
So the contracts themselves are the cap is in the duration of the contract. We anticipate, based on the projects that we know will be handled by these contracts, to be about 13 million as they were estimated in our 2018 Water Resource Master Plan. I don't want to say that would be the cap, because since 2018, the cost of construction has increased, and the scope of the projects that we intend to undertake include those master plan projects. But as I mentioned, we also want to have the flexibility for some of these emergency situations that arise. When we get a little further with the procurement documents and our planned issuance of them, we'll have a better handle on the projected amounts. But right now, we're looking at between 13 and 15 million is our estimate.
So as you do these tasks, are you have to come back before the PUC in order to get each one approved, or this is just kind of a blanket approval of anything within this scope?
Well, this is the way that we have been doing things under the contract review protocol, is if we know it's gonna be over $1 million and it involves funds that are not grant funds, then we come to you for the petition to procure, and then once we procure and have a contract, we come back for the contract to be approved.
Commissioners, good evening. So the request before the commission tonight is for GWA to begin the procurement. And so we have specifically stated that it will be a multi-step IFP and an RFP. So we're gonna receive the technical offers really in both of those procurement processes, and then separate sealed prices. So at the close of the procurement, but prior to contract, we will return to the commission with the prices. And then the commission will have more information on the number of contractors, who submitted offers, and then we will have, the best offer and their price before the commission at that time. I just want to point out that the 13 million, if you look at Exhibit A07 of the petition, it gives a snapshot of where the numbers come from. And then if you look at the pages following that, it really gives more detail as to really the length of the pipes that need repair. And I guess thanks to our GIS system, we're able to map out the coordinates and the length, so you can better understand why there's such a variation in price. Like for the Barragata pump station, it's 5.4 million. Route 1 PV pipe rehab is 4.4 million, and the Finidi Drive rehab is 830,000. But that's really due to the length, of course, and other things, but I think mostly really the length of the pipes that need repair. And of course, the condition of those pipes. So all of that information is in the petition.
So all the projects are already laid out in terms of what you want to get done, and you'll do the go out for bid on each one of those, or the RFP for each one?
It's an RFP for all of these projects.
For all of these,
yes.
Okay. But the ones that are listed, it's
And
not.
the ones
it's
that
not
are
limited.
listed, and that's where we came up with our price.
Right, okay. Thank you.
It's an RFP, but on this, we have an IDF, indefinite. Whereas the RFP isn't that fixed to where you put out the bid, or you put out the RFP, you have the competition come in, you select the best price for the ratepayers, call it bid. And that company gets it, but now it's for indefinite, so you pick that company. Does that company monopolize for that whole period of having all those projects indefinitely for an indefinite time frame? Where's the best process for the ratepayers and the cost of these proposals or these contracts?
So, on the design build, there's the two-step process. So the qualifications are established in step one to make sure that they're qualified to do the work. And then that's the technical proposal, and then the price offers are after that. And the competition is in the price offers that we're getting the best price for the ratepayers. So if they're all qualified, then they can proceed to step two. And then in step two, when we ask them for their prices for the type of work that we're doing, then the lowest price will then be selected from the qualified offer. So that's where the competition comes in for those, for the construction side, the design build side. For the PMCM work, it's by law, qualification-based selection, so it's an RFP, and you're based on you're selected on the basis of your qualifications. However, based on the specific task order we give you, if you come back to us with a price proposal, we negotiate what we believe is reasonable based on our estimates, and if we can't come to an agreement, then we don't issue the task order. So having multiple contracts and multiple teams to go to, so if we, in the normal course of an engineering contract, if you don't get the price that you want or that is fair from the most qualified offer, you reject that and then you go to the second most qualified offer. In this case, having multiple IDIQ contracts gives you that ability, and we have some IDIQ contracts already for PMCM services. So, if we can't negotiate a fair and reasonable price with one, we move to another. And I can tell you that the engineering department has rejected task orders. We have one IDIQ contractor that was selected and they're very qualified, but the number of task orders that they've been issued is 0 because we can't agree on the fairness of their price, and so we're still working on that.
So it allows you to have this group of qualified contractors, and you can put the task order out and then just continuously work to get
The most fair and reasonable
cost that is
price.
closest to the estimate that GWA says is fair and reasonable.
That's correct.
And then you mentioned that has a time limit. Is it like, once you decide to do, it's like over a 3-year, 5-year period? Is there like a time limit, or is it just
No,
indefinite?
there is a time limit, but we also have in our contracts the ability to terminate for convenience. So if we can ever get a reasonable price from a contractor that we have under contract, then we would terminate for convenience and put it out again.
Right.
But in the instant case, what we're asking for, I believe there would be 5-year contracts, and it would be 3 plus 1 plus 1.
And that will all come up once you start coming before us in terms of the selection of the awardees or.
Well, we've given you the draft procurement documents, but we're still developing those, so we'll refine that, and including the terms before we put it out to procurement.
Okay, and for the specific projects, but then you mentioned the indefinite part allows you to also identify any emergencies that might happen on the field that you need somebody to repair, and you can use that same contract to hire somebody to do that.
Yes.
That's what that allows you to do. Okay.
Yeah.
But no cap. There's no. Oh, but still, when you do that and you hire that person, do you have to come before the commission as well, or no?
If it's issued as a task order to an existing contract, we would not anticipate coming before the commission for additional approvals.
Right.
But the commission does approve the total contract amount, and GWA will continually appear if the task orders exceed the total contract amount that this body has approved.
Right. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around the indefinite, quantities and indefinite sort of, it's kind of odd for a bid or for RFP. It seems that way, it seems that it's just open-ended, but
So-
it really isn't.
I understand the concern. I would say that the IDIQ format has been used, on Guam for many years by NAVFAC. If I recall correctly, for their construction ones, they have a seed project and then they have a maximum amount for authorized for the contract, but no minimum amount. Oh no, sorry, I got that backwards. They have a minimum amount, but no maximum amount. So they plan their procurements based on, we know we have this much work, so this is the minimum we're going to need, but it could exceed that amount.
Still clear as mud.
I think what they're saying is that they're gonna return to us when they've selected an award.
Right.
And request, they're gonna present a budget, for instance, like estimates of like what the work is gonna cost. And then that's what they're gonna ask you guys to approve, is estimated cost and the total value of like the contract that they eventually select.
Right. Okay. So, sorry.
So if
Sorry,
there's
Miguel.
work that you don't think is reasonably priced, or if there's work that you don't think that should be included in the contract, you can at that particular meeting
Right. So
suggest a removal of that.
So this
particular-
IDIQ is really to allow multiple bidders to come out and say that this is, we can do these jobs, this is our price, however that goes. But then those are go through the process for bidding, right? Or for proposal, RFQs or RFPs, or a bid. I don't know how you guys would to award the task orders.
I think they're using this mode because they're not able at this time to identify the projects that they
Right.
wanna use the contractor for.
Right, that's what it sounds like, so that's what the indefinite, that side is, the services. So, and then once they narrow it down, whoever those companies that already have a certain price, that's the price that they would have to use, give you, right, I guess that's the price that we would have to pay for those services.
Right.
At that point, right, okay. So the indefinite part is just to open it up to let other people come in and say, we could do some of that work. May not be all, maybe this, maybe that, but, and if we did, this is our price. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the simplest way, well, at least for us, the benefit of using the IDIQ format is because it provides for qualified offers, priced competition, which meets the whole goal of procurement, but the ability to award multiple task orders for multiple projects. So we know we have this workload coming up.
Right.
Over the next several years we need to get done. Rather than do 4 procurements for 4 projects, and essentially the same contractors are competing for it, we do 1 procurement, but we are able to issue the contracts based on task orders.
Right.
Using a competitive price proposal.
Right.
So it's flexibility like that for the issuance and the timing of the task orders that we need based on our project needs. But the added flexibility is for things that are unforeseen, that are not planned. We have a contract vehicle in place, we have a competitive bid price, and if we have a need that comes up, we know that we're getting a good deal on the work that needs to be
Right.
done.
It's established up front. Right.
But just to add to that, it's really because the scope is so broad.
Right.
The scope is broad. So we've identified, the specific areas, and it's just a broad scope. That mouthful that the chairman read at the beginning. Sewer rehabilitation, replacement.
Right. Yeah, do we have an update on some of the other projects that we were working on, or that were awarded, or that went out to had to get done with it. It wasn't a consent decree, but it was an actual, list of things that had to get done.
Are you talking about the court order project?
The court order projects are, and then I know we set money aside for all of those. Where are we with those? Are we, would you say, are we 90% there done?
98.6% complete on the court order projects. We have one item remaining, which is the completion of the reservoirs.
Right, okay.
And so we have 3 reservoirs under construction right now, and a bunch more than that under repair. So we anticipate that we will complete that by June of 2023.
That's it, and then we're done with all the court order stuff.
Yes.
Awesome.
And Miguel, this, for this contract process is, would be beneficial with you and your work with US EPA with consent order that you're anticipating is coming down towards, right?
Yes.
You're in discussion about that now.
Yeah, so we've been in negotiations. We have not finalized the negotiations, but we understand that they are regulatory priorities for EPA, and we also know that they are deficiencies in our system which need to be corrected. So we're not waiting until we finalize the negotiations. We know the work needs to be done, and this whole process is us trying to demonstrate that we can stay ahead of the enforcement actions.
So that it's proactive.
Yes, ma'am.
Being proactive to be able to come into compliance with all those issues that US EPA has called to your attention.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
needs to be addressed or else.
Yes.
Questions? Good.
Thank you, Joe, Mike. Good.
With funding, what grants is funding? Yeah, system development charge, bond proceeds, and grants. What are the grants that are funding? We're anticipating that we might be able to use the US EPA SRF grant funding on some of these projects. Any other grants that are out there? Well, we continue to look for other grants, but for construction, primarily it's just the SRF grants. We anticipate our continued level of funding, and then with the bipartisan infrastructure law, we also anticipate an increase in funding over the next 3 to 4 years. And so we are trying to align our priority list with our anticipated projects so that we can maximize the use of the grant funding.
And the infrastructure bill.
And out of curiosity, how does CCTV inspections work? Is it mobilized CCTV, or is there CCTV for the whole project? I'm just curious.
So when we do primarily used for the cured in place pipelining, prior to starting that repair process, the first thing they do is clean the line and then CCTV it to get the initial condition, so that when they design the repairs, they know the condition of the pipe and what the repairs, how the repair, thickness of the liner that they need to use, and also if there's a particular section that they cannot be lined because there's a break, then they know they have to go in and dig up that section. So it helps them to quantify how many point repairs are needed versus how much CIPP lining can be done, and that's kind of the basis for the design. So you do one in the beginning, and then you do the lining and repairs to make all your repairs, and you do one at the end to verify that it's all been done correctly and to assist with putting in the laterals to connect to customers. But it's mobile equipment, cleaning, and the CCTV in the same operation.
Miguel, I had thought that GWA had personnel that were trained to operate the CCTV cameras through the system.
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have that, and their function primarily is for us to do that for system maintenance purposes. But when it comes to these construction projects, the contractors, because they don't necessarily want to rely on our CCTV footage, they want to do it for themselves because it's part of the liability of the design. So it's just part of the construction process.
So does that hold the same for the field surveys that, the consultant's going to be required to do? I think I read that here.
On the PMCM contract?
Yeah. There's something here about field surveys that they would be required to do. Looking at the right one.
That's
Were there field surveys involved?
typically on design projects before the surveys are part of the design process.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's, I read that and I said, I wonder if that's something GWA personnel could do. Does that, when you're negotiating this price, you are considering what GWA personnel is able to do to be able to save on the cost, correct?
For these construction contracts, typically, GWA operations and maintenance personnel are not involved. So we do have personnel, for example, who do the CCTV and the cleaning, but they do that for regular O&M of the existing system, not part of these construction projects.
Okay, so it'll be solely the responsibility of the contractor
Yes, ma'am.
to get that done, so it's not a GWA.
Anything else?
Motion to approve GWA docket 2205 as ordered.
Have to be expired.
This matter comes before the public.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Okay,
Thank you,
Miguel.
Miguel. Teresa, did you say this Teresa?
Yes.
Thank you, Teresa.
Hey, Miguel, one quick technical
You
question.
say-
Median acid, does that flow north to Agani or south to Agassiz Narita?
That all flows north to Agani, right, Mom?
Which project?
The PDNS and the Route 1.
Yes, yes, it goes through that.
Goes north.
By the way, sorry, I did not introduce, this is Maureen McDonald, she's our, head wastewater, runs our, CIP program for wastewater, one of our senior engineers.
Oh, we're in.
Thank you.
We know Marine, we just don't recognize her because of the mask.
I know, the mask. I was like, Donald? Kega?
Last item
Thank you.
under, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Last item is fiscal year 2021 PUC annual report. Fred, are you gonna read every single line item to us?
Yes, we're gonna read all 30 pages. We may be here for a few hours. Chairman, I did send you this letter. Normally what we do, we have a cover letter and then more detailed. It may be too detailed, but I think it's a good record anyway, of what the PUC does over the years. So I have the original for your signature. In the past, sometimes we've submitted it to the commission even after we filed it, but to give you all an idea, I don't know if it needs technical approval, but if anybody has any objections to it.
Where's the financial report?
No, it's the annual.
Oh, the annual report.
This goes to the governor and the legislature, right?
Yeah, this is required by 12 GCA 12104, and it requires that the PUC submit its annual report by the end of January for the prior year. So sometimes we've made the January deadline, sometimes we haven't, but actually, if it's signed tonight, we probably will file it on Monday with the speaker and the governor. We will meet the January deadline.
But this same report goes on the website.
Yes, we always file it for each year on the website.
With all our activities. Yeah, we did.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Fred, for your excellent work on that as always. Anything else, we're all squared away?
So this was just for our purposes. I did want to bring up, I know it's only January, but, we can all figure that out. Is it for June and July? Is there a, be skipped, so.
Rick?
This matter is not under administrative matters, but, I mean, it's not on the agenda. But I had a call from Tracy Limpiaco at GPA, the Assistant GM for Administration. And of course,
Does this, I'm sorry, with this, you wouldn't nullify any actions that take it, because it's not.
Since it's not on the agenda.
I don't want.
you know, I'm not really asking for action, possibly, but just to let you know what her conversation was. And then, I don't think it requires actually, well, probably doesn't require full commission action.
We'll save it for later. This was kind of an important meeting. You don't want it to.
Yeah. I don't
We don't wanna bring up anything outside the agenda.
That's not on the agenda.
All right, but we can.
We don't wanna risk nullifying this.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Say aye.
Don't forget to sign the orders.
Thank you.
7:52.
Walking on a tightrope.
Yeah, I did.
So if you discuss something on the agenda, it's all about something.
You can, so somebody wants to know.
Just nullifies the item that's not on the agenda.
Just the item.
They were not put it like that.
But that's one way to stop it.
First, no, man, tired for